this month will mark 3 years since we first went into lockdown. My goodness, that was a long old slog, wasn't it? And it's fair to say that some people really felt the effects of social isolation. A film called Nexus has been created looking at how the COVID pandemic impacted young people's mental health. And as Dr. Mann co-produced the film, our very own Charlie Brother has been finding out more.
My name's Dylan. I was one of the young co-producers that helped create Nexus, the short film, all about the impact of COVID on young people's mental health. So it touches on topics like eating disorders, isolation, poverty, and not being digitally connected. We wanted to try and make something that felt really real and authentic and raw. I think it's a bit of a cycle. There's stigma because people don't often talk about their own issues, out of fear of being judged or ridiculed, and people judge because it's not talked about and normalised enough. Hopefully, with this film, we're trying to break that cycle. It was important to make a film that not only young people could relate to, but something that anybody could relate to. We all felt the effects of COVID and lockdown in some kind of way.
You had a screening in Middlesbrough recently, didn't you?
Yeah.
What was that reaction like?
Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. This week we've had a bit of a Nexus roadshow, so we took the film to Birmingham and then Manchester, and then obviously I was the most excited for this one in Middlesbrough, being from Stockton. I think there's definitely a bit of a northern pride about, not speaking out about your own personal issues and being really proud. But there's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of, and the struggling. And to highlight that importance of social connection, we really want to be a voice for our community, and we really want to speak up and encourage others to speak up and try and tackle that stigma.
Well, let's find out a little bit more now from the film's producer, Dr. Lindsay Dewar, and director Chris Godwin. They both join us this morning on BBC Radio Tees. Morning, both.
Morning.
Morning. Lindsay, if I start with you first of all, because I know you are an advanced research fellow in mental health. How did the pandemic and the lockdowns really affect people, especially younger people?
Well, so many people wanted to tackle this topic in March 2020, and I can't believe it's 3 years, like you say, and it's gone very fast. Lots and lots of young people in our study really struggled. So around 30% actually had poor mental health, and that seemed to continue during each lockdown in particular. And actually we did a systematic review across Europe that there's similar findings there, and qualitatively that social connection was so important to protect against that worsening mental health.
Do you know, we heard from so many people at the time, and you felt sorry for so many people, but especially the young people, because I have a 9-year-old daughter, and she missed out on, I'd say almost 2 years really normal schooling, and then you're getting people revising for GCSEs and doing things remotely from home and just not getting the university experience. It just seemed heartbreaking.
Absolutely, it really did, and actually again the sort of the educational aspects was covered in our study and also in our review. That these are really key academic milestones that most students have missed. It was completely different. Some people are now, even just now, doing exams face-to-face for the first time, building that confidence over those social situations that were actually lost during the lockdown is it's obviously really impactful. So they're really now just catching up to where they should have been, in 2020, 2021.
Are we starting to see things settle down now for people? Are we going to see the effects of that for years to come? Because I know you mentioned mental health there, and a lot of people want to access the help, but there just isn't enough to go around, is there?
No, I think obviously that's, it's a real priority to certainly look at the more prevention strategy rather than reactive strategy, and so many people get to that really severe end before they actually get to access help and get the treatment that they need. And so we really need to be thinking much more about preventing that from even happening by providing lots more support in terms of self-care, lifestyle behaviours such as physical activities, sleep management, providing those connections to peer support, providing those alternatives to traditional routes, just while people are, preventing them from deteriorating, but also providing that care until they can get that traditional treatment within the NHS.
And now that the film has been made, how proud are you of this?
Oh my gosh, honestly, this week, and it's great to hear Dylan on the radio, honestly. He's been absolutely fantastic, and this week has been amazing, showcasing our work, and I think we've really, certainly even after our online premiere last night, we've realised actually how bigger impact this could potentially have to the wider community, the young people, even to politicians, to actually raise this awareness, to be able to make change at a higher level. Creative film and different ways of disseminating your research is so crucial. And it was obviously a jumping off point from our research to do this film, and it's certainly going to be changing the way I try and disseminate my research in the future. It's just so impactful. Stories are so impactful.
Oh, and Chris, what was it about this particular project that made you want to get involved?
Well, I make a lot of films about mental health, and like most people, I wasn't hugely busy during lockdown, and I came across an interview on the radio one day about the impact of COVID on mental health, which wasn't something that had been addressed up until that point. And so I did some research, and I came across Lindsay's work, and the more I heard about it, the more I thought this could make a really, really powerful film. And it wasn't just the content, it wasn't just the quality of the research that she'd done. It was also the way that she'd actually gone about developing the research, using young people in the whole process in a very co-produced way. And we then decided, when Lindsay and I first met, we decided, well, we should adopt that same approach in making the film. So the young people that were involved, including Dylan, were instrumental in making the film and coming up with the story, coming up with the ideas, signing off on the cast, signing off on the edit. And Dylan himself was absolutely key to the story. One of the things that he introduced into the whole story development process was this element of poverty. And so we really started trying to build this element into the film. And what it did is basically our central character then because was living in poverty and was isolated from his friends, had to kind of make a choice between having access to the internet or being succumbed to this bulimia that had taken hold of him at the start of lockdown. And that was like a turning point in the story development process. So Dylan was absolutely instrumental in terms of the final film that we produced.
It's fantastic, and it's so important to give young people a voice as well on a platform. I know it's been shown in cinemas, isn't it, including here in Middlesbrough. Is it being shown already, or what was it like? Because did you have a premiere yesterday night?
So what we did yesterday, so we basically had a sort of film on tour, like Dylan mentioned. We've been to Birmingham, Manchester, and then we went to Middlesbrough to screen the film there. So we were screening in cinemas in Birmingham and Manchester. We actually went to wasn't a cinema, but it was a great screening venue at Middlesbrough Football Club on Thursday, and it was great. I mean, you can't match sitting with people and having that community experience of watching a film together. I think there's a really good reason why we like to go to the cinema, and we like to be together. We like to enjoy and have that sort of communal experience when we watch a film. And so it's great then to hear people's reactions to it and to feel how it touched people and how it made people think differently about COVID, differently about young people and the impact that COVID has had on them. But also, I think what the film also highlights is the importance of social connection. What COVID did was it removed the social connection, and for many young people, being with other people is their central form of coping. And so what COVID demonstrated is actually when you remove that, it can be catastrophic for some people. And so I think the lessons to be learned moving forward is that, it's quite simple. Just give people the opportunity to come together. And that doesn't necessarily have to be physical. It can be digital as well. And I think that's a kind of counter to the social media narrative, which seems to be very negative. And it is in many ways. But in many ways, it's really, really productive for people just to be connected, to feel that there's somebody out that they can talk to, that they're part of a community.
Chris, thank you so much for your time this morning. Chris and Lindsay chatting about that film, and the brilliant Dylan as well, who's been an instrumental part of it.